What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the numbers. This is my full card breakdown and prediction video for UFC Saudi Arabia. We have Robert Whittaker going against Ikram Aliskerov, and yeah, the month of June for UFC has to be cursed. I mean, we've had a ton of fights fall out. We've had a ton of late notice replacements, and this is one of them. We had Robert Whittaker was supposed to take on Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev pulls out, and in steps Ikram Aliskerov, somebody who was supposed to fight last week, was supposed to fight Antonio Tricoli. And now it's going to be these two going after it. And then on this card, we also lost a couple fights. We lost the SD Dumas, Denis Tualuin fight. And then we also lost the Muhammad Naimov, Melsik Bagdasaryan fight. Melsik had to pull out. And then I think we're getting a replacement for the Naimov fight. So if so, I'll be breaking that fight down on Friday. And then no word yet on whether or not Denis Tualuin's going to stay on the card because Cedricus Dumas was not able to get to Abu Dhabi, like flight issues or something, he says. So yeah, as of now, don't have a ton of fights on this card. I think it's like 10 or 11 at this point, but as always, looking forward to breaking it down. I think it's a really fun card. Before we get into, if you guys could like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Check out Prize Picks. This video is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code DFSBTN. Get a 100% deposit match up to $100, and I'll touch on a Prize Picks play that I like nice and early in the week during the show. And then also check out dfsbythenumbers.com. That's where you'll find all my other content. Not going to have a ton of action this week, but I am going to have a ton of action for UFC 303. A ton of stuff sticking out already. On this card, there are a few spots I like in the main event and in the co-main event. But outside of that, might be a light-ish card for me on some of these fights. But I say we get into it, guys. We're going to start with the first fight of the card. We got two guys from Road to UFC. We got Xiao going against ChangHo Lee. We got Xiao, who is 26 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach, 26-8 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. ChangHo Lee, 30 years old, 5'8", with a 69-inch reach, 9-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at these odds. Xiao opened up actually as a plus 150 underdog. He's now minus 125, and ChangHo Lee opened up as a minus 175 favorite. He's currently a plus 105 underdog. And yeah, so watch both these guys. I do remember Xiao. He went and fought on the Contender Series against, I think it was Christian Quinones. And in that fight, he lost the first round pretty clearly. And then it looked like he was kind of winning the second round up until he got dropped, hurt bad. But he showed a lot of toughness in that fight, but clearly lost the fight 30-27. And at that time, I think he was only like 23, 24 years old maybe. So he's still a young guy, room for improvement. But yeah, both these guys are just absolute dogs. You know, both these guys are tough as nails. Both these guys have a ton of heart, especially ChangHo Lee. This is a guy that reminds me a little bit of somebody we saw fight last week in Brady Heastand, where he's just relentless, like non-stop wrestling. I didn't really see much, if any, of his striking because he's trying to get the fight into grappling positions the entire time. Whether it's him getting taken down, which he does, but if he gets taken down, he gets right back up, and then he'll take you down, and then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. He has no quit in him. If he put him into bad spots, he won't quit on you, and he's one of these dogs. It just doesn't stop. Has a crazy motor, crazy heart, and he was able to show that off in one of his Road to UFC fights where he was losing pretty much the entire fight, and then all of a sudden his opponent starts to slow down. He gets on top and he lands down some nasty ground and pound and gets a 3rd round TKO. Has a couple of TKOs, so the ground and pound's decent if he's able to get into dominant positions. But yeah, this is a close fight because it's one of those fights where I think it does go to decision just because how tough and durable both guys are. Xiao is a guy that has been knocked out 3 times, but a very long time ago, and he's probably like 19, 20 years old at the time. But yeah, this dude has a chin. He eats punches with his face. And ChangHo Lee, same thing, super tough. So I think this fight goes the distance, and I think it could be one of those fights where it's like a damage versus control type fight potentially, where, you know, ChangHo Lee is able to get a lot of control, but Xiao lands some big shots on the feet potentially. In terms of making a pick, I guess I'm going to go with the guy that I was more impressed with, which is going to be ChangHo Lee. I just like that style. I just like the relentless, non-stop style, as soon as the fight starts, go for a takedown type style, the never quit type style. I like the style of ChangHo Lee, but this is a fight that I do feel like is going to be a split decision type fight. So yeah, give me ChangHo Lee to win this fight. I'll take him to win the fight by decision. Next, we have Magomed Gadzhiyasulov going against Brendson Ribeiro. We got Gadzhiyasulov, 30 years old, 6'2", with a 75.5-inch reach, 8-0 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Brendson Ribeiro, he is 27 years old, 6'3", with an 81-inch reach, 15-6 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We have Gadzhiyasulov opening up minus 450. He's currently minus 350. Brendson Ribeiro opened up plus 350. He's currently plus 275. This is probably one of the more violent fights on the entire card. Brendson Ribeiro is a kill or be killed fighter, so I think it's going to be a fun fight. So the thing with this fight is we don't know much about Gadzhiyasulov, or at least I don't. I'm not sure, like there's not a ton of tape out there on Gadzhiyasulov, and when you do find tape on this guy, it's against like the bottom of the barrel level of competition. So yes, he's looking decent, but he's looking decent against very low level competition. Like he's taken some of these guys down and they're just quitting. And on the Contender Series, he went against Jose Medina. And in that fight, like, he won every single round, but it wasn't the most impressive victory. And Dana White actually gave Jose Medina a contract. For some reason, it was one of the most questionable signings I've ever seen, but gave Jose Medina a contract for losing a 30-27 decision. It was crazy. But yeah, he beat Jose Medina, and that was probably his best win. So it's like, he looks good, but against who? So yeah, I don't know a ton about Gadzhiyasulov other than, he's a decent striker, he can wrestle a bit, has good ground and pound, and he looks good against these lower level competition guys. As far as Brendson Ribeiro, I know a lot more about him, and I think that's why we're getting such a wide line here, because with Ribeiro, this is a guy that I really question the durability. Ribeiro's been finished 5 times in his career, 5 of 6 losses. I think 4 come in the first round, and then I think 5 come under 1.5 rounds. So he's been knocked out multiple times. And I've seen fights where, he's getting knocked out and he's getting taken down or reversed. And once he does end up on bottom, did not really like what I saw. In one of the fights, he kind of quit, looked for a way out. So I feel like Magomed Gadzhiyasulov just has more ways to win this fight. On the feet, he can land a big shot. I think that's really in play. The durability of Ribeiro's in question. But getting this fight down to the mat and getting into a dominant position, I think he can find the TKO as well. But Ribeiro, he does one thing really well, and that's he has a lot of power. So Gadzhiyasulov, we don't know what his durability is like. It's never been tested. He hasn't really fought many guys that are halfway decent. So it's a fun fight. It's a violent fight. I'm going to take the guy who I think has more paths to victory, and that's going to be Gadzhiyasulov. I'll take him to win this fight by second round TKO. Moving on, we got Muin Gafurov going against ChangHo Kang. We got Gafurov, 28 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach, 18-6 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. ChangHo Kang, 36 years old, 5'9" with a 73-inch reach, 19-10 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Gafurov opened up minus 160, currently minus 155. ChangHo Kang opened up plus 140. He's currently plus 135. And Gafurov was a guy that I was so high on. I was so high on this guy prior to the Contender Series. I remember taping him for the Contender Series. He's fought some good guys outside of the UFC. He's very impressive, a really good finisher, like a 94% finish rate. He can strike, he can wrestle, he can do it all. I was very impressed with Gafurov, and then he goes in there against Chad and Helliger and loses that fight. I mean, you shouldn't be losing that fight. It was a fight where he was able to get Chad and Helliger down 5 times, but Chad and Helliger did drop him, I think, in the second round with a knee, and ultimately ended up losing a very close decision. You arguably could have scored it for him, but the fact that it was even that close, it's not the best look, because I had high expectations for him in that fight and in general. Then he goes out there against John Castaneda. I believe that fight was on short notice, and he held his own in that fight. He actually outlands John Castaneda 61 to like 40. He outlands John Castaneda at distance 47 to 37, which is great, but he gets dropped in that fight, just like he got in the dropped in the Helliger fight. So maybe the chin's in question for Gafurov. And then he goes out there against Seidner Magomedov and gets submitted in the first 60 seconds of the fight. So it's like, man, this guy's had a really rough go. A guy that I thought had some upside in the UFC, and now he's 0-1 on the Contender Series, 0-2 in the UFC, and now he's taken a step down. Like, this is a step down from Seidner Magomedov for sure, but ChangHo Kang is definitely no slouch. ChangHo Kang, somebody that's just well-rounded, good everywhere. The striking of ChangHo Kang, even at 36 years old, I think is looking better than ever. He's a BJJ black belt. He can wrestle a bit as well, but he is getting up there in age at 36. Muin Gafurov is going to be 8 years younger. This is a close fight. I think this fight is probably going the distance. Both guys are next level tough, next level durable. ChangHo Kang has a ton of fights. I think he's only been finished twice. And as far as I think it was finished losses for like a while ago as well. So yeah, Kang, extremely tough, and we know how tough Gafurov is. He'll get dropped here and there, but the recoverability is perfect. He gets dropped and pops right back up. And I don't think ChangHo Kong's gonna drop him here. If he does, that's concerning. But yeah, I think this fight goes the distance. I think the wrestling grappling can kind of even itself out a bit. I think this is primarily going to stay standing. And I'm going to take Muin Gafurov, who's younger. I think he's going to be more active. I think he's going to be landing the better strikes, the harder strikes. Give me Muin Gafurov to win this fight by very close decision. Next, we got Rinat Fakhretdinov going against Nicolas Dalby. We got Rinat Fakhretdinov, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach, 22-2-1, and 4-0-1 in his last 5 fights. Nicolas Dalby, 39 years old, 5'11", with a 74.5-inch reach, 23-4-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Rinat Fakhretdinov opened up minus 400. He's minus 320 now. Nicolas Dalby opened up plus 330. He's now a plus 270 underdog. And yeah, how about Nicolas Dalby going out there, 39 years old, 4-1 in his last 5 fights, pulled off a massive upset in his last fight against Gabriel Bonfim, a fight where he was a really big underdog. A lot of people were counting him out, including myself. And yeah, he ended up getting taken down, controlled a little bit in the first round, put in some bad spots, put in some submission attempts, able to fight out of all those, show a ton of toughness in the second round, ended up breaking Gabriel Bonfim. Now he's taking on Rinat Fakhretdinov, who is another very, very tough test, hence the line here. And Fakhretdinov kind of dropped the ball in his last fight. It's not a fight that he lost, but it's a fight where he did get a draw against Elijah dos Santos, where he kind of slowed down as the fight went on. Wasn't the best look in the world, but yeah, early on he looked good, just kind of really slowed down, which was weird because against Brian Battle, Andreas Michailidis, he was, clearly tired. You're going to get tired when you're attempting like 20 takedowns, but he was able to kind of fight through the full 15 minutes. But yeah, in that Elijah dos Santos fight, it wasn't the best look, and he needs to kind of fix that against Dalby here, because if that happens against Dalby, there could be some trouble late. But I do think it's a really good matchup for Fakhretdinov. You take a look at Nicolas Dalby. Where does he struggle? 60% takedown defense. We saw Gabriel Bonfim take him down 3 times, control him, almost sub him in the first round. We saw 40-year-old Claudio Silva take him down 4 times, control him for a lot in the first and second round. That was not a good look. We saw Tim Means take him down, control him a lot of that fight. We saw Jesse Ronson club and sub him. That got overturned to a no contest, but still, you can give Jesse Ronson all the steroids in the world. He shouldn't be subbing anybody in the UFC. So yeah, I think it's a tough matchup for Nicolas Dalby. He's only getting older. I still think he does have some left in the tank, but against Rinat, I just don't see it. I like the striking of Rinat. I like the power of Rinat. I think he's going to have more power here. And then I think the best, easiest path to victory is the wrestling. This guy can wrestle, and once he takes you down, you're staying down. If Claudio Silva, Tim Means, and those guys are able to control you, I think a guy like Fakhretdinov can as well. So give me Fakhretdinov to win this fight. I'll say by decision because Dalby is very tough, but a finish would not shock me. Give me Rinat by decision here. From a prize picks perspective, one thing that I do like on prize picks for Rinat Fakhretdinov is going to be the less on the fantasy score. On prize picks, you do not get fantasy points for control time, and you do not get fantasy points for non-significant strikes, which I think there's going to be a lot of both of those. I think Rinat's going to get a lot of control time here, and then I think Rinat's going to get some ground and pound, but those will not count as significant strikes. Yeah, I think Rinat wins this fight by decision. You get 20 points for a decision, and if that's the case, I don't think he's sniffing the 94.5. So give me the less there. If you guys want to check it out, use promo code DFSBTN. Moving on, we got Nasrat Haqparast going against Jared Gordon. Haqparast, 28 years old, 5'10", with a 72-inch reach, 16-5 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Jared Gordon, 35 years old, 5'9", with a 68-inch reach, 20-6 and 2-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Haqparast opened up minus 240, currently minus 255. Jared Gordon opened up plus 250. He's currently plus 215. And yeah, this is an interesting matchup because I've always been trying to fade the chin of Jared Gordon. He's been knocked out multiple times in the UFC. He's been finished in 5 of his 6 losses. He's been dropped a ton. He's been hurt a ton. And it's concerning because you look at Jared Gordon's career, and I was looking through it, it's like he doesn't fight a ton of strikers, Jared Gordon, like at all. Outside of Bobby Green, who was a striker and that turned into a no contest, obviously, but he's fighting a lot of like wrestler grapplers like Mark Madsen, wrestler, Leonardo Santos, grappler, Joe Selecki, grappler, Chris Fishgold, Danny Chavez, Dan Moret, like not a ton of strikers. Even Joaquim Silva, he can strike, but Charles Oliveira, Grant Dawson, Paddy Pimblett. So not a ton of like pure strikers like Nasrat. Like Nasrat Haqparast is not going to grapple at all in this matchup. So Nasrat Haqparast is a guy that I'm a lot higher on than a lot of people. A lot of people think this guy's overrated and he sucks, and maybe he did get a little bit overrated, but I think all that hype has kind of died down after the Dan Hooker loss and the Bobby Green loss. But since then, he beat John Makdessi, he dropped him in that fight. He put up 171 significant strikes against Landon Quinones. I love that performance. And then he also went out there and knocked out Jamie Malarkey, which is what you need to do at this point. Nasrat Haqparast, I love the volume. I think he has sneaky power as well, and I think he's very live to knock out Jared Gordon. The only problem is, like, if he's not able to knock out Jared Gordon or hurt Jared Gordon, and this fight does end up going to decision, it could be pretty close. Jared Gordon has very good volume in his own right, and Jared Gordon is also going to be the guy with all the grappling upside here. So Haqparast on paper, 78% takedown defense. We saw Dan Hooker take him down 3 times. That wasn't the best look. So if Jared Gordon's durability holds up for 15 minutes, we could be looking at a lot closer fight than this line does indicate. But I'm more so of the opinion of Haqparast is going to hit Jared Gordon in the face a lot of times here. And I'm not sure if Jared Gordon's going to be able to pull a Landon Quinones and eat 171 significant strikes. If Haqparast lands anywhere near that number against Gordon, I think he's getting knocked out well before then. So I'm going to take Haqparast here. I'm going to take him to win this fight by second round knockout. Next, we have Shara Magomedov going against Joilton Lutterbach. We have Shara Magomedov, 30 years old, 6'2", with a 73-inch reach, 12-0, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Joilton, 31 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach, 38-10, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Shara Magomedov opened up minus 350. He's currently minus 230, and then Joilton opened up as a plus 285 underdog. He's currently plus 195. Joilton has taken this fight on somewhat short notice, and yeah, this is a guy that has 48 fights, Joilton Lutterbach. 48 fights. He has a judo background. I believe he's a BJJ black belt as well. He can strike a little bit. He's like the full package. He's pretty good everywhere. But yeah, he is taking this fight on like somewhat short notice. I'm not sure how much weeks short notice, but short notice nonetheless. Shara Magomedov was supposed to fight like Ihor Potieria, which would have been hilarious, but yeah, Lutterbach stepping in here, and I don't know. I mean, Shara he beat Bruno Silva in his debut. And a lot of people are giving him crap for that win, but I thought that win was great. Bruno Silva took him down 3 times. Bruno Silva held him down for 6 minutes and 44 seconds. But what I loved about Shara Magomedov in that fight was as soon as Bruno Silva took him down, Shara was out there, throwing up elbows, punching from bottom. And he ended up landing like 100 strikes off of his back. It was great to see. Of course, you do want to see, you work your way back up and get back to the feet, which he did a few times. But, even when he was on bottom, he was just nonstop action, nonstop activity, which is great because that can help you in a fight that does go the distance. Like that certainly, we've seen fighters win fights off of bottom position. Like Vanessa Demopoulos comes to mind against Kanaka Murata. Just being active off your back can help out if you do get taken down. But yeah, on the feet, this is a guy in Lutterbach who's a serviceable striker, but the striking advantage heavily goes in favor of Magomedov. Magomedov has phenomenal striking, and Lutterbach I don't think is going to want to stand with him. Lutterbach's going to want to get this fight down to the mat, and if he does, yeah, I mean, maybe he can have some success holding him down here or there, but I do think Magomedov can work his way back up and, of course, be active off bottom. And if this fight is competitive and close, we know who the judges are going with here. It's going to be the 12-0 Shara Magomedov, a guy that the UFC really wants to get behind here. So I think there's a lot of things going against Lutterbach. The short notice, this fight being in Saudi Arabia, Shara Magomedov being a potential star. Potentially. I mean, work on that takedown defense a little bit, and yeah, this guy can be very good, Shara. So, yeah, give me Shara here one way or another. I'm not sure if he knocks out Lutterbach. Like, if Lutterbach's not able to get the grappling going at all, he probably does knock him out. But I'll say that this fight does go the distance, and Magomedov wins a decision. Maybe Lutterbach can have some success, get a takedown here or there, but I'm not sure it'll be enough. So give me Shara Magomedov to win this fight and win it by decision. All right, next we got Johnny Walker going against Volkan Oezdemir. We got Walker, 32 years old, 6'6" with an 82-inch reach, 21-8, 3-1 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Volkan Oezdemir, 34 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, 19-7 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Johnny Walker opened up minus 180, currently minus 115. Volkan Oezdemir opened up plus 155, currently minus 105. So yeah, money coming in on Oezdemir. He was a dog like a couple hours ago. Now he's now it looks like this line might flip. Maybe we'll see. But I don't know. I mean, this should be a pick'em. It's a Johnny Walker fight, which means I don't know what the hell's gonna happen in a Johnny Walker fight. This is a guy it's like a tale of two fighters with Johnny. In some fights, he's just completely wild, chaotic, no regard for his own safety. Doing crazy things in there. It's entertaining to watch, but he can be knocked out and then there's sometimes Johnny Walker shows up and it's like technical Johnny Walker, smart Johnny Walker. It doesn't do a ton Johnny Walker. I mean, some of these fights are exciting, but some of these fights suck. I mean, I'll never forget that Thiago Santos fight. That fight sucked, where both guys just did nothing. And then even like the Anthony Smith fight, a fight where Johnny Walker was clearly winning, that fight sucked. I mean, Johnny Walker just took his foot off the gas pedal. The fight cruised to decision. And so it's like, I don't know. And then even against Magomed alive, he wasn't going out there being a crazy wild man when he probably should have been, and even then still got knocked out. So I don't know what to do with Johnny Walker. Volkan Oezdemir, I don't know what to do with him either. This is a guy that has always been a pretty good fighter, in my opinion. He's well-rounded, great takedown defense. He has power. He has good striking, good volume. Good cardio as well for the division. There's a lot of things to like about Oezdemir, but there's been some fights as of late where he just looks terrible. That Paul Craig fight. And it's a win, but geez, it looked like he was fighting in slow motion. He hurt Paul Craig on multiple times. It was scared to follow up. I did not like that performance. I also didn't like the performance against Nikita Krylov, where he had some success early, but after that he was completely done. And then he looks great against Bogdan Guskov, but that's just a massive step down from some of these guys. So I don't know. I'm going to go with Oezdemir here in a fight that I feel like just flip a coin on this one. Give me Oezdemir because he's going to be more durable, which is not hard for Johnny Walker, for anybody to be more durable than him. Oezdemir is more durable. I think he's going to have a little bit more output. But geez, I mean, anything can happen in a Johnny Walker fight. Give me Volkan Oezdemir to win a very close decision. It wouldn't shock me if this fight sucked. It really wouldn't. I could see Johnny Walker being very hesitant after getting knocked out for the 40th time. I could see him. I could see this looking like the Thiago Santos fight. I could see this looking like any Magomed Ankalaev fight. Just not a ton going on. The fight cruising to decision. And everybody falls asleep, so including the judges. So give me Volkan Oezdemir to win a decision. Moving on, we have Kelvin Gastelum going against Daniel Rodriguez. We got Kelvin Gastelum, 32 years old, 5'9", with a 71.5-inch reach, 19-9 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Daniel Rodriguez, 37 years old, 6'1", with a 74-inch reach, 17-4 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We have Kelvin Gastelum opening up minus 150. He's currently minus 250. Daniel Rodriguez opening up plus 130. He's now plus 210. So a lot of money coming in on Kelvin Gastelum. And if this was a fight that was happening back in, I don't know, say 2022, 2021, where D-Rod was coming into the UFC just looking phenomenal, beating Mike Perry, Kevin Lee, Preston Parsons, knocked him out brutally. Knocked out Dwight Grant in a very fun first-round fight. Daniel Rodriguez was a guy that I was super high on. He came into the UFC making his debut against Tim Means, and I think he rattled off like 7-8 wins in a row. I know he lost to Dalby, but he won that fight. But yeah, I think he started off 7-0 in the UFC, including that Dalby fight, which he won, but the judges got it wrong. But all good things come to an end because, when he did fight the Leech, and that was back in 2022 already. I mean, time freaking flies. It feels like that fight was yesterday, but that was a fight where D-Rod looked a little off in that fight, and I thought that the Leech won that fight. I thought many people thought the Leech won that fight. It was close, competitive, but I think, the winner of that fight should have been the Leech. So yeah, that wasn't the most spectacular performance, but hey, he still got a win. And then he goes out there against Neil Magny, and he gets broken. He gets tired, and he gets Darce choked in the third round. It wasn't the best look. And then he goes out there and gets head kicked by Ian Machado Gary. So I'm wondering if all the fight miles is starting to catch up on Daniel Rodriguez, which you might think is crazy to say because he only has 21 professional fights, but this is a guy that has, I believe he said, over 100 fights in prison, and those prison fights are going to take a lot out of you, and it looks like all these prison fights, these prison wars are catching up on Daniel Rodriguez, 37 years old at this point, and yeah, he just looks off. He's looked off for like the last couple years, and I think he had another suspension as of late, and the last time he fought was last year, like 13 months ago, and now, actually, maybe 14 months ago. So what's he going to look like? My guess is probably a little bit worse. I think it's going to keep declining here for D-Rod. So, yeah, like I said, if this fight was a couple years ago, it'd be a much different story. It's just, I think at this point, D-Rod might be on his way out, as sad as it sounds. And Kelvin Gastelum, although he hasn't looked amazing as of late, I still think he has some left in the tank. The Sean Brady fight wasn't the best look, but this is a completely different stylistic matchup. He looked good in the Chris Curtis fight. So I gotta go who I think is not completely washed here, and that would be Kelvin Gastelum. It wouldn't shock me if Gastelum was able to go out there and maybe wrestle. I think that could be in the cards for Kelvin Gastelum. He went out there and took down Ian Heinisch 6 times. Why not take down D-Rod? I think if he wants to, he could go out there and take down D-Rod. So I think that could be in play. I think Kelvin can potentially land some big shots here as well. So yeah, give me Kelvin Gastelum. The minus 250 is like disturbing, but at the same time, if D-Rod really is kind of on his way out, it could make sense. But give me Kelvin Gastelum by decision. Next, we got the co-main event here. Sergei Pavlovich going against Alexander Volkov, my favorite fight on the entire card. We got Sergei Pavlovich, 32 years old, 6'3" with an 84-inch reach, 19-2 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Alexander Volkov, 35 years old, 6'7" with an 80-inch reach, 37-10 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Sergei Pavlovich is pretty big favorite. Opened up minus 210, currently minus 220. Alexander Volkov opened up plus 180, currently plus 185. And this is a fight that I love. And I'm not sure, well, I am sure, this fight's going to play out one of two ways. Either Sergei Pavlovich takes off Volkov's head within the first couple minutes, or Volkov is able to maybe get this fight down to the mat, or just do better work, more volume, maybe break Pavlovich as the fight goes on. So yeah, I think somebody's getting served in this matchup. And one thing that I find very interesting, and this is kind of what sways me a lot more to the Pavlovich side, because first and foremost, Pavlovich is a guy, it's hard to pick against him, because although he may be at a big skill deficit in terms of maybe the cardio, maybe the volume, the ground game especially, he has the death touch. This guy can knock out anybody in the world. Sergei Pavlovich hits like an absolute truck. This guy can knock out a horse. This guy can knock out like an elephant. Like, what's another? Like, this guy can knock out anything. This Sergei Pavlovich hits very hard. So although Volkov has not been knocked out in a very long time, since I think the Lewis fight, he hasn't been knocked out in the first round in a very long time. I think like 12 years. If somebody's going to do it, it's Pavlovich. But yeah, what I saw was there's an interview with Alexander Volkov back in like March of this year. And Volkov says, first of all, these guys train with each other, right? And Volkov says that he doesn't like sparring with Pavlovich because he hits very hard, and anytime he lands something, like Volkov's getting hurt basically. He's like, I don't want to spar with this guy. Like, what? Like, that kind of stuck out to me a little bit. So first, why would he accept the fight then, right? But what I think it might happen is I think Volkov might like try to sell out for the wrestling here, which would be so smart. It really would. And if he does, like if he's able to get on Pavlovich, I think he could potentially finish him, but that's going to be easier said than done. Like, that's not really Volkov's game. Volkov doesn't really take down anybody. I remember he took down Curtis Blades randomly in their fight. But outside of that, Tai Tuivasa kind of fell in that fight like twice, and he got on top. But yeah, he's not really taking anybody down. Yeah, the last takedown he had was in that Blades fight. So we could see him maybe try to wrestle here. But yeah, if he strikes with Pavlovich, it's going to be bad news, I think. So yeah, give me Pavlovich. First round knockout. That's how he gets it done. I think he's going to swarm Volkov. I'm hoping These guys aren't going to go out there and spar because they're training partners and they're friends. But even if they do spar, like Volkov said, like Pavlovich is still kind of crushing him there. So Pavlovich first round knockout, but I'm curious to see like the game plan of Volkov. Is he going to go out there and try to strike with Pavlovich for 15, or is he going to try to wrestle? But yeah, give me Pavlovich KO1 in this fight here. And then we got the main event, Robert Whittaker, ikram Aliskerov. I did do a main event deep dive. If you guys want to check it out, it's on the channel. Talk some betting perspective as well, but we got Robert Whittaker going against ikram Aliskerov here. We have Robert Whittaker, 33 years old, 6 foot with a 73.5-inch reach, 25-7 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Ikram Aliskerov, 31 years old, 6 foot with a 76-inch reach, 15-1 and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. So yeah, like I said earlier, Khamzat Chimaev had to pull out in steps ikram Aliskerov, and there's a lot of things going against Ikram here, which needs to be said. So Ikram Aliskerov last week in the co-main event was supposed to fight Antonio Tricoli. So this was a guy that was preparing for Antonio Tricoli, and they scrapped that fight, and now he's facing Robert Whittaker. I can't put into words how much of a difference there is between Antonio Tricoli to Robert Whittaker. Like, this is a massive, gigantic, astronomical step up in competition. So I don't like that. What I also don't like is this fight was made like last Thursday night. Like Ikram was probably in the process of cutting weight. Like, I don't like that. And then lastly, they were in Vegas. Ikram was in Vegas, and now he has to fly all the way to Saudi Arabia, and I don't like that. And then we'll keep going. Another thing, the Tricoli fight was 3 rounds, and it was only going to go like 1 round at most, and now this fight's scheduled for 5 rounds. So there's a lot of things going against Ikram, and that doesn't mean he can't win. It's just there's a lot of things going against the guy. Robert Whittaker, as long as he doesn't get like clipped early, I think it's a very winnable fight for him. But Robert Whittaker's been hurt in a lot of fights, especially as of late. He's taken a ton of damage throughout his career. It's kind of crazy. It feels like Robert Whittaker's not 33 just because he's fought so much. He's been in there for so long. But yeah, he's only 33 years old. It's just he has taken a lot of damage in a lot of these fights. He's been in a lot of wars, and I think a lot of these wars have taken a lot out of him. But still, if this fight reaches the 2nd round, I think his chances skyrocket. If this fight reaches the 3rd round, I think his chances really skyrocket. But yeah, Ikram early is going to be dangerous. He has some power. He can wrestle. But is he going to wrestle for 25 minutes? I absolutely don't think so. Is he going to get a Kimura here? I absolutely don't think so. But the one thing is, like, Ikram could potentially hurt Whittaker. So, but yeah, I got to go Whittaker here. There's no way I can pick against Whittaker. It's a show me spot. I think ikram Aliskerov is the real deal. But there's a lot of things going against him, and this is a spot where, it's just a big step of competition. This is not Antonio Tricoli. This is not Phil Hawes. This is not Warley Alves. This is not Dennis Tuoluen. This is Robert Whittaker, which is going to be his toughest test by a mile. So show me spot here. Give me the veteran Robert Whittaker to get it done, and I'll take him to get it done by either late finish or decision, kind of leading decision there for Robert Whittaker. There you guys have it. Thank you so much for watching. Like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Be on the lookout for more content throughout the week. Prize picks, betting, DraftKings, you name it. It'll be on the channel. Check out Prize Picks, promo code DFSBTN. And then also check out the website, dfsbythenumbers.com. Again, not going to have a ton of action this week, but I'm going to start looking into UFC 303. There's a ton of spots sticking out already, and it'll be probably my biggest card of the month. So check that out. And yeah, guys, best of luck for UFC Saudi Arabia. We'll talk to you soon. See you.